George, you know what Mona Lisa Smile made me realize?
That you still don't know how to spell Mona?
Besides that, it made me realize that Dead Poor Society has a version for white women.
Ah, yes. The What If Robin Williams But Estrogen experiment.
Exactly. Same structure, same themes, only now, instead of a bunch of boys discovering Walt Whitman, we've got Julia Roberts convincing girls that painting fruit is liberation.
You know, the movies do have a lot in common.
And I will say this, Julia Roberts is better looking than Robin Williams.
You think a yak's butt is better looking than Robin Williams?
Hey, I like a nice yak's butt. But let's stay on track here. Let's compare and contrast Dead Poor Society and Mona Lisa Smile.
Both movies have a charismatic teacher who challenges societal and educational norms.
And like all magical movie teachers, they're never overworked, never underpaid, and never have kids of their own to deal with. They grade papers, but only the kind that lead to life lessons rather than a lower grade point average.
Both of them battle rigid, conservative institutions that stifle free thought.
Ironically, the free thought they're fighting for is also pretty conservative. I mean, none of these kids are going to integrate their schools or start a labor strike. Their big rebellion is, what, talking back to your parents? And once that's done, they're still going to vote Republican and take over the family business of foreclosing on the elderly.
Well, to be fair, both movies take place in the 1950s, a time of strict conformity.
Yeah, that's the myth. But everything conservatives hate about the 60s started in the 1950s. The CIA was playing with LSD. The civil rights movement was gearing up. Beatniks were laying the groundwork for hippies. If anything, these movies should have been about an FBI agent storming into the classroom and asking which one of you kids has actually spoken to a Negro you weren't paying.
Fair point. Anyway, there's a subject difference. One teaches art history, the other teaches poetry.
And both are carefully curated to be just rebellious enough to make the audience feel smart, but not enough to actually make anyone uncomfortable. Nothing that'll make a modern audience clutch their pearls or even made a 1950s audience spit out their martini.
Well, one thing's for sure. Neither teacher lasts long in the job.
Yeah, that's the real lesson. Inspiration is the fastest way to an unemployment check.
So, which one did you like more? Or, knowing you, which one did you hate more?
Let's start the show and find out. Welcome to Does This Still Work? The podcast that always asks, does this still work? I'm Joe Dixon.
And I'm George Romaka. Today we're discussing Mona Lisa Smile from 2003 and some historical context. First, podcasty stuff. We're excited to announce that we've joined the Creator Accountability Network. CAN is a nonprofit dedicated to reducing harassment and abuse through ethical education and a system of restorative accountability. We joined because we care about the safety and well-being of our community members. If you feel our behavior or content has harmed someone, please report it to CAN, either via the reporting form on their website, creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org, or via their hotline at 617-249-4255. They'll help us make it right and avoid repeating that mistake in the future. CAN also needs volunteers from our communities to help with their work, so if you have skills you think would be helpful, or time and a desire to help, please visit their website to find out how you can volunteer. Most importantly, get the word out to other creators who you think would be interested in getting credentialed. Help us build safer communities together. One more thing, if you want another way to help, CAN will be holding a live stream fundraiser on April 25th, 2025 from 6 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. They will be interviewing other podcasters, not us because we're shy, and we also didn't get in before the deadline. But much fun will be had, and hopefully donations will be made. You can reach us at dtswpod@gmail.com, on Facebook, Letterboxd, and on our YouTube channel. Joe is on Blue Sky at joedixon.bsky.social. Please tell your friends about us, even the ones who think that women exist only to be wives and mothers, and leave 5-star ratings everywhere. We will take their money, is what we're saying. Because you can pick what we watch and get extra per episode content by funding us on Patreon for as little as $1 a month at patreon.com/dtswpod. The patrons voted for this movie. This is why we are talking about it. See? Voting works when people do it.
You know, and curious enough, people voted and a woman won. So who knew that was possible in America?
Yeah. All right, Joe. Take us back to 2003.
And that's the way it was.
This movie is set in Wellesley College in the 1950s. The school was a white women's college. Now, I'm sure nobody at the time actually said white women's college. I'm sure they just said it was a women's college, but come on. Clearly that's what it is. Or was, anyway. And what was happening with that school in 2003? Well, its most famous graduate got an award that year. George, read this headline from the Boston Globe.
Hillary Clinton to get college honor. Award is highest Wellesley confers.
The headline says it all, but I will read these tidbits from the article. In 1969, she was the first student to speak at a Wellesley College graduation. Tomorrow, U.S. Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton will return to the campus to accept an alumni award from her alma mater. Hillary Rodham addressed her 401 fellow seniors at graduation after U.S. Senator Edward W. Brooke gave the commencement speech, according to a 1993 Globe article. We feel that far too long our leaders have used politics as the art of the possible, she said, and the challenge now is to practice politics as the art of making what appears to be impossible possible. After she finished her challenge to the senator, her classmates gave her a 7-minute standing ovation. End quote. And those white women would go on, years later, to vote for a racist scumbag over Hillary Clinton because old white women would rather die than elect a woman president of the United States. And yes, I am still bitter about her and Kamala. Thank you for asking. Moving on. Women, and in this case I do mean women, all women, have been beating men in education for years now. Women first earned more bachelor's degrees than men in the mid-1980s. Women earned more master's degrees than men for the first time in the 80s. By 2006, women were earning more doctoral degrees than men. Going back to 2003, a number of publications were noticing this trend. George, read this headline brought us by the Chicago Tribune.
Boys trail girls in graduation race.
I will quote, "If young men of prime college age aren't in college, where are they? Behind bars for one place. According to the latest data from the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 419,700 men between 18 and 24 are in the state and federal prisons and local jails. That's 60 times the number of their female contemporaries. Among men in that age group who are neither incarcerated nor in school, nearly a quarter are unemployed or not in the labor force. The Bureau of Labor Statistics term for those who neither have a job nor are looking for one. The rest are working and not necessarily at dead-end jobs, according to labor analyst Russell Signaro, who sees job prospects for young non-college men as better than those for young non-college women. Manufacturing jobs haven't entirely dried up, he said. As for other areas where men with just a high school education still earn living wages, Signaro cited construction, machining, tool and die making, maintenance, trucking, warehousing, and sales. These jobs are open to women, but they're still male-dominated, says Signaro, who works for the United Way of Greater St. Louis. End quote. Now, this article doesn't mention military service, but a lot of men, like you, George, prefer military service to going to college, whereas women, as a group, do better in school and so continue on to college. They especially want to attend college because the jobs they want require a degree. Women are more likely to pursue professions like healthcare, education, and social services, and they all require at least a bachelor's degree. In fact, if you're a woman without a degree, you're more likely to make less money, whereas men who dominate in construction, manufacturing jobs like law enforcement and firefighter don't need college to get those jobs. I think that's really the reason for men falling behind, quote unquote. They can still get by with less education than a woman can. But what do you think the reason we have this education gap, George?
As a 43-year-old white man in management at a utility company who doesn't have a degree, I don't know, Joe.
That's right. Look at that. You're in a management position and no college degree.
Yep.
The question is, could a person of color or a woman get that same sort of opportunity? With no college degree?
Every woman I know in management has a degree.
Oh, really? Ah, interesting. So there you have it.
Yep.
Good to be white, isn't it, George?
And a guy.
And a guy. Good to be a white man. Look how great you are doing with the country, guys. All right. Okay, George, I know, I'm too political. Okay, George, tell us about...
No, it's not that you're too political. It's that people who look like me have so much power, and we could do so much good with that power, and we just don't.
Not only do you not do anything with the power, at least most of you, you bitch about little things you can't do.
We do stuff with that power, it's just all fucking evil.
Yes, it's very bad, but I'm saying even the stuff you can't get to do, you bitch about that. Why can't I say this? Why can't I do this? Like, you already have all the power. How much more do you want? But it's got to be everything.
Right.
And then once it's everything, they'll still be depressed because there's a deep hole in these people that can never be satisfied.
Yep.
And I don't mean that sexually.
I didn't think you did until you said that.
Okay, George, tell us about Mona Lisa Smile.
Okay. This was directed by Mike Newell. For the show, we've seen his work in 4 Weddings and a Funeral, and I've seen his work in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire. 2 very different movies.
Mm-hmm.
This was written by Lawrence Connor and Mark Rosenthal, whose work I've seen in Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, and Star Trek 6, The Undiscovered Country. Mark Rosenthal, Joe, you've seen something of his.
I did. I saw his work in The Jewel of the Nile.
Blurbs. IMDb says, Catherine Watson teaches art history in 1953 at the respectable all-female Wellesley College. She encourages her conservative students to question and disregard the outdated social mores for women. That's a weirdly constructed sentence, that one. Based on the size of this blurb, what can you guess is the service I watched this on?
YouTube?
Yeah. 1953 America was a time ripe for change for women, and when Catherine Ann Watson, Julia Roberts, arrives to teach art history at Wellesley College, she finds the institution drowning in outdated mores. While the nation struggles with the fears that accompany a shifting political culture, the powers that be at Wellesley seem to want to re-corset the women who have been the backbone of the World War II workforce just a few years earlier. A passionate educator, Catherine takes on the establishment and in doing so, deeply affects her students, who in turn lead her to alter the course of her life forever.
Forever?
Copyright 2003, Revolution Studios Distribution Company, LLC, all rights reserved.
It's actually in the blurb for some reason. But George, you know what's worse than dealing with outdated Moors?
Dealing with outdated Saracens.
Close. Outdated s'mores. That would be worse. Who wants an outdated s'mores? Those taste terrible when they're stale.
I mean, they still taste better than not eating a s'more.
I don't know about that. I'm really not into marshmallows, into my my cake cookies.
You're not into marshmallows between your crackers and chocolate?
Nope.
Okay.
I want my crackers bland. like I'm accustomed to them.
Like the guy in The Devil and Mrs. Jones.
Oh, yes, right. Graham crackers.
Wow.
Good for digestion.
I pulled that fucking reference out of there.
Very good, yeah.
Proud of that. We open to a student, Betty Warren, typing up a biography for her school newspaper of her art history professor, who will be our protagonist.
All her life she had wanted to teach at Wellesley College. So when a position opened in the art history department, she pursued it single-mindedly until she was hired.
I don't know about that. I mean, we'll find out how hard she had to work to actually get that job in a second.
Indeed. Betty Warren is played by Kirsten Dunst. Both George and I have seen her in Spider-Man, Spider-Man 2, and Spider-Man 3. And we've seen her in Interview with the Vampire. On my own, I've seen her in Little Women, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and Wag the Dog.
And I've seen her in Jumanji and heard her in Anastasia. The narration continues over scenes of that professor, Catherine Ann Watson's arrival by train, and describes her as a bohemian from California whose brains make up for her lack of highbrow credentials, what with her having graduated from a state university and all.
Heavens!
Catherine Ann Watson is played by Julia Roberts. For the show, we've seen her in Pretty Woman and Hook.
And I've seen her in Ben is Back, The Pelican Brief, and The Player.
And I've seen her in Notting Hill, Aaron Brockovich, The Mexican, and Ocean's 11. Betty also describes Wellesley as the most conservative college in the nation, which, by all accounts, appears to be a complete and utter fabrication.
Oh, of course, 100%. There's no way that could possibly be true.
And, I mean, Hillary Clinton graduated from there.
Well,
not that she's not a fucking, middle of the road wishy-washy Democrat. She still would have fucking been better than Trump, and we should have voted for her. I forgot where I was going with that. I just wanted to say that part.
You just was yes, but she was a Republican at the time.
Yeah.
But
Republicans also weren't fucking batshit insane at the time.
Fair enough. But I'm sure other, like Yale or Harvard, all these schools are very conservative and cowardly, as we now find out from the way the schools are operating today.
Yeah.
But that's another story.
A title card places us in the fall of 1953, which was like the year of or after Wellesley College hired the first African-American sociology professor.
Ah, good research.
Now, we don't see any black people in this movie.
Not at all.
But one would have been at Wellesley around that time. Anyway, the opening ceremonies at a college are kind of fucking weird.
Well, for this one, because let me tell you, of the two of us, I have been to college, we didn't do this shit. And I doubt it happens today at Wellesley or any other college. But go ahead.
School President Jocelyn Carr announces the official commencement of the school year. And President Jocelyn Carr is played by Marion Seldes.
You're going to mention how everyone's dressed, or shall I get into it?
You can talk about it.
All right. So, just real quick here. It's for those who haven't seen the picture or maybe don't remember, this thing opens with or at least this commencement thing opens with them wearing gowns. And it's almost as if they were graduating, it looks like.
Like the faculty are all wearing gowns.
Right. And the main woman, I guess the one who was, is that Dunst who does it?
No,
someone knocks.
That's the one. We'll announce her in a bit, but that is Joan.
Okay, so Joan, one of the characters knocks on the door with a
mallet
gavel.
Yeah. To
have them come in and they commence it was just such ceremony. I've never seen anything like it in my life. You know what commencement day of school is? A bunch of kids showing up on campus, talking to their parents, getting the stuff out of their cars if they drove, who drove up there, and putting it up into their dorm and meeting their roommate. That's it.
Yeah.
None of this formal stuff.
Catherine is brought to a dorm room, which she decides isn't for her since dorm rules prohibit hot plates and penis havers.
Mm-hmm.
She opts instead for a nearby boarding house owned by another instructor to school, Nancy Abbey, whose husband, quote-unquote, died in the war, pin in that, and who teaches speech, elocution, and poise, which were apparently never, ever taught at Wellesley. Like, that was never a course in Wellesley's history, ever. Nancy Abbey is played by Marcia Gay Harden. For the show, we've seen her in Flubber, and I've seen her in The First Wives Club. Nancy is super proud that she matched the sheets, wallpaper, and artwork on the walls in their chintzes. She goes over the house eating plans. Dinners are communal, and everyone gets their own sacrosanct shelf in the fridge.
Mm-hmm. This is, see, that's the type of thing I want in retirement, communal living. I think that'd be nice. I wouldn't have a sacrosanct shelf. That I wouldn't care about. So you know what to share with whatever's in the fridge.
Yeah. The next morning is when the real fun begins for Catherine, as class is now in session.
Be careful. They can smell fear.
The speaker is Catherine and Nancy's other roommate and school nurse, Amanda Armstrong, who's played by Juliet Stevenson.
And who, as a character, I would probably rather have followed her around, because I don't know if you mentioned, ladies and gentlemen, I don't read the scripts ahead, so I don't know if George mentions this, but she gets in trouble for her activity.
Oh, I absolutely mentioned what she gets in trouble for and what her sexual orientation is, in case you're wondering.
Yes, so I would 100% rather have followed her around. I thought
she was definitely the more interesting character, yeah. In the coming scene, we meet much of the rest of the cast, Catherine's students. We've already met Betty. There's also Connie Baker, played by Jennifer Goodwin.
Joan Bradwin is played by Julia Stiles. And for the show, we've seen her in 10 Things I Hate About You. I've seen her in Silver Linings Playbook and Hustlers.
And I've seen her in The Bourne Identity.
Giselle Levy is played by Maggie Gyllenhaal. Both George and I have seen her in The Dark Knight and Donnie Darko. And I've seen her in Frank and Adaptation. I really should put Frank on the list. I would just love to know what you think of that movie.
I should really put Donnie Darko on the list.
They should both be on there. Yeah. I feel like we had Donnie Darko on, but as a voter's choice.
Patron's choice thing, and they didn't vote for it. Yeah. See, patrons, that's what you get for voting. I don't know what that's supposed to mean. Scripted to be a pack of merciless highbrow smartasses, the entire class read and fucking memorized the entire textbook for art history so that they could take the piss out of Catherine by knowing all of the answers. Then they just up and walk out of class.
Yeah, I'm sure that also never I mean, obviously this isn't a documentary, so none of this happened, but I'm sure something like that
never happened. Yeah. One of the school administrators was auditing that class. While waiting to be spoken to by the school president, the secretary cheerfully tells her that she only has this job because the person they wanted took a job at Brown and nobody else wanted it, and lots of people don't even want her there.
Was always good to hear.
Yeah. But as far as dedicating herself single-mindedly to getting this job, she applied for it. And then she got it.
Yes.
In that order.
Yes, exactly. So you have to wonder, I guess that's just embellishing on the part of the woman who's writing that.
Yep. The president and her assistants throw shade on Catherine's dissertation, quoting her that Picasso will do for the 20th century what Michelangelo did for the Renaissance, and docking on modern art before telling her to exercise more discipline in her classroom.
Now, other than the discipline in the classroom thing, wouldn't that other stuff, the whole dissertation stuff, wouldn't that have come up during her interview for the job?
You'd think, Joe. You'd think.
Why are they bringing it up now? Like, I'm hired. If you don't like my dissertation, that was the time to bring it up. Not now. I got the job, guys.
And also, what the fuck does that have to do with the discipline in her classroom?
Well, I feel like, I assume those are two different things, but yeah.
They're just like they're just trying to fuck with her. Yeah.
Yeah.
That night, she phones her boyfriend, Paul Moore, who calls that the kids were snobs and does that I hate to say I told you thing.
Paul Moore is played by John Slattery. Both George and I have seen him in Ant-Man, Captain America Civil War, Avengers Endgame, Ted 2, and Iron Man 2. And I've seen him in Spotlight.
That night, Nancy calls Catherine over to her black and white television set to watch I Love Lucy, whom Nancy loves even if she's a communist. Amanda comes in and quips that the only thing read about Lucy is her hair, which sent me on a brief search for the history of color television, which was just barely becoming a thing in 1953, and me concluding that they must know her hair color because magazines existed.
100%, yes. Have you ever seen I Love Lucy?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just curious because one of the running jokes in it is that her hair is dyed red.
Yeah.
Because they make a reference to the fact that she has red hair. There was a publication, I think it was called Red Dial, some right-wing nonsense publication, accusing her of being a communist and a bunch of other actors being communists because in her case, she once attended a Communist Party thing with her uncle back when she was like a teenager or some such thing. Not that, frankly, even if she did it as an adult, how is it their business? It's not a crime to attend a communist meeting.
Tell that to Joe McCarthy.
Yeah, exactly.
We learn that Amanda is a lesbian and that her partner died not long ago. Amanda cautions Catherine to not let the students get to her. Again.
Why do you suppose that detail was there for her? Because it really doesn't... I mean, we find out a little bit about the person she was with, but I don't feel like it... We don't develop much more about her other than the other thing that comes up.
That's a good question, Joe. But at the same time, like, it doesn't need to not be there.
Oh, no, I have no problem with it. Like I said, I would rather have followed her around. I think her story is much more fascinating.
Catherine spends the night studying the students' personnel records, the way the principal did in the Breakfast Club, but without the subterfuge.
Well, that's another thing. She had pictures of them. Would that be in their record, in their files?
I don't know, Joe.
That seems like that's something you would have if they were in acting school or something. Their headshots.
When Kit and I first started talking, like before we started dating, I threw together a dossier of her because I was getting a lot of good information. I'm like, I want to know everything about this person because I really, really like them. So I had like her favorite foods, her favorite colors, like how to cheer her up when she's sad, shit like that.
Oh.
And I did include pictures because I had pictures and I liked pictures of Kit because she's fucking gorgeous.
It's also someone you wanted to date.
Yes.
It's not the same thing. Or bar. I'm curious. What do you know about me?
I know
What's my favorite color? Go ahead.
Black.
No.
Is it blue?
Oh, okay, yeah.
That was just a lucky guess because mine's blue.
Oh.
Maybe that's why we get along, because we have the same favorite color.
Indeed.
I was tempted to reference Audition for this, too.
Oh, okay.
Because he's looking through but...
Well, at least them, the headshots make sense, because that's an acting thing that was going on.
Yeah. Next day, she throws the students for a loop and threatens to bring down the whole of our Western society, apparently, by going off book and showing them Carcass, painted by Shame Soutine, and asking for their thoughts. They have a conversation about what makes art and who actually decides that.
Which is a good question that they never really... Well, you can't really...
There's no one answer to it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly, yeah.
That night in the girls' dorm, we learn that Betty is getting married soon and that her cousin will be attending the wedding with Connie. Giselle is a bit of a handsy one and has slept with the Italian professor, who we'll introduce in a bit. They hypothesize that Catherine isn't married because she took this job to escape California after a torrid affair with a movie star. Joan arrives home late and can't seem to stop smooching with her boyfriend, Tommy Donegal, at the door.
Tommy Donegal is played by Topper Grace. And both George and I have seen him in Spider-Man 3, and I've seen him in Black Klansman.
And I've seen him in Ocean's 11. When Joan gets back inside the dorms, the other girls discover her contraceptive pills prescribed by Amanda, the school nurse. So Betty sits at her typewriter and writes all about that for the school paper.
Which, Joan knows how Betty is. How could she possibly think she could reveal that and not have this girl go blab it?
Good question, Joe.
I mean, it's ludicrous. She would never I'm not going to show this to her, because I know everyone knows what she's like. She's not quiet about being a real...
she's a fucking bitch. Like, she's a huge bride. She's a pain in the ass. Like, so much so that the movie, Connie stops practicing her cello. And it's like, why are you like this? Like, the movie is aware of what a piece of shit she is.
Well, that's only because we know later she'll change.
Yeah. At a school field day, which includes a baptism, Catherine meets the Italian professor, Bill Dunbar. On the subject of possible repercussions to Amanda following publication of the birth control story, he has this advice to offer.
The trick to surviving Wellesley is never getting noticed. Ciao, Mona Lisa.
Bill Dunbar is played by Dominic West, and both George and I have seen him in Chicago.
And I've seen him in Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, and 300.
Now, before we get into the rest of this, I just want to say, look, just so it's clear to everyone, the idea of a professor dating his students was not controversial.
In 1953, yeah.
Or 1963 or 1973. It wasn't until maybe the late 70s, because the only reason I even knew about this sort of thing was suddenly wrong was because, of all things, an episode of One Day at a Time, where one of the girls, One Day at a Time is a story about this a single mother raising her children. One of the girls is hit on by her teacher, and he won't give her a better grade unless she sleeps with him. And also, on All My Children, the soap opera I was going to be watching at the time, the character Angie, who we've mentioned before on the show, I had a crush on her.
Yep, you sure the fuck did.
Yes, and she was being pressured by her professor to sleep with him. And so suddenly the consciousness is raised now, like, oh, we got women in college, and these professors are fucking creeps.
Yep.
But back then, perfectly fine. No big deal. Even though, we'll see later, dating is a problem on the campus, just not when the male professor does it.
Yeah. We go to the venue for Betty's wedding, where Betty's mother and head of the PTA, Mrs. Warren, is tasting foods and dishing out orders. Her mother takes her to task for agreeing to let her betrothed decide not to read a poem.
Mrs. Warren is played by Donna Mitchell, and I've seen her in Boiler Room, Syriana, and The Ice Storm. And I just want to say very quickly, ladies and gentlemen, if you have an overbearing parent who wants to dictate your wedding, what you do is you don't go to your spouse and go like, oh, mom is pressuring me, or whoever's pressuring me. You say to that parent, okay, and then you do whatever the fuck you want at the wedding. What are they going to do? Stop it?
Exactly. Amanda is brought before the school president and then fired, basically for being a liberal.
Yes, and she's supplying birth control. Because we want the girls to get pregnant, apparently? Out of wedlock? Is that what you want? Because the girls are going to have sex. But, try that.
I mean, we know
conservatives.
Again, conservatives want supremacy. They want to use cruelty to get it, and they operate on hypocrisy. That's all you need to know about how they think.
Or cruelty is the point.
No, supremacy is the point.
Well,
cruelty is the weapon.
Cruelty is the joy they get.
Yeah. In Nancy's manners class, which again never existed, she really hammers home that it's a woman's role to be a wife and mother, own desires and goals be damned.
Now, just in case anyone's wondering, or maybe even you wondered, well, if that's their feeling, why would they even bother going to college? But the reason women at that time would go to college is because they wanted to find a better class of man. And they know we'd find them on a college campus, so he'll be more higher station as opposed to, just some working class dude or something. Not that, and of course, these women's parents wouldn't have them, ain't no working class man anyway, so he would have to find someone in business or a doctor and that sort of thing, so you went to college.
Yep. Catherine goes to an off-campus bar where Bill is just there. They commiserate over losing Amanda. She asks if he learned Italian in Italy in the war, and he says yes. Pin in that.
Indeed.
When Catherine returns home, Amanda is packing her things. Amanda says that since her partner died, there's nothing here for her now anyway.
And the best part of the movie walks out of it. We never see her again. He's the best character as far as I'm concerned.
The next day, Joan comes to visit Catherine about a C she got for writing about Bruegel. Catherine encourages her to form her own opinions rather than parroting what she reads. Joan is sure that she can be a wife, mother, and lawyer all at the same time.
I would cut out one of those. Do the lawyer, do the wife. I wouldn't be a mother.
Okay, Joe.
Just my own personal opinion. It'd probably be easier. Kids are a real pain in the ass.
Yep. That night, Betty wakes Joan up to tell her that her boyfriend was spotted shopping for an engagement ring. In class, Catherine assigns them a test and then slips Joan an application for Yale.
Which is very nice, although I can certainly see, well, aren't you just going a little over the line there? That's a little presumptuous on your part. At least sit down with the girl and go, listen, I have a Yale application. Would you be interested in, as opposed to let me just slip this? I don't know. I can see why they could think maybe she's going a little beyond what her job is. But I guess she is, right? That's one of the things she does.
Everyone goes to Betty's wedding, and it's a big old deal.
And it's on campus, isn't it?
I think so.
It seems like it's on campus if it's not.
If not, it's close by because everybody from campus shows up there.
That's true.
Lots of schmoozing happens at the reception. Bill makes sure to sit next to Catherine. Giselle recognizes him making a move and runs to intercept by asking him to dance. Betty's new husband, Spencer Jones, doesn't fall for the making it seem like his idea plan to get him to read that poem, but he still reads it anyway. I was kind of looking forward to seeing that not happen, or not even be hinted at that it was going to happen, because we don't actually watch it, thank goodness.
No.
I don't give a shit what this terrible woman's favorite poem is. A bunch of boys play football with a loaf of bread.
As they want to do at weddings.
4 of which I have rising in the other room right now. Spencer Jones is played by Jordan Bridges. Connie dances with Betty's cousin, Charlie Stewart, and he tells her that Betty did him a favor by having him paired with her. Giselle tells Bill that Catherine is too good for him. Nancy has had enough liquor to pull out that first pin that we put in the script. Her dearly departed husband is more of an ex-husband who went off and found himself a whole other family.
Yep, that's her way of grieving.
Yep.
Charlie Stewart is played by Ebon Moss-Baccarat, who I've seen in No Hard Feelings, The Royal Tenenbaums, and The Believer.
The next day, without Betty, who is on her honeymoon, Catherine takes the class on a field trip to unveil a Jackson Pollock painting. She uses it as another chance to broaden their minds.
Now, the thing is, Catherine is presented as not really having any connections. She went to state school. So how did she manage to pull this off? That's a real Jason Pollock. How did she pull that off?
Good question, Joe. Charlie catches a ride to campus so that he can interrupt Connie's cello practice and make out with her. The president has a walk and talk with Catherine about her unorthodox teaching methods.
Which, as I say in the cold open, really isn't all that unorthodox.
Nope. Betty and Spencer do a double date dinner at home with Joan and Tommy. Joan tells Betty that she got accepted to Yale and credits Catherine for prompting her to apply. Betty is indignant and asks what right Catherine has to upset the natural order of things. Before the night is up, Spencer gets called away to an emergency lawyer meeting.
And she's really upset about this, although at the same time, she wants a husband who does this sort of thing, who's very successful and is constantly being called in. So look how well I'm doing at the law firm. She wants to brag about that. Well, if you want that, this is what you get. Although in this case, he's also leaving for other reasons.
Yep. Paul surprises Catherine with a visit. She takes him to the bar, and Paul surprise proposes. He sticks a ring on her finger without actually getting a yes. A split second later, Giselle comes in with Bill, who she's been stalking. They briefly congratulate the newly betrothed before skedaddling to have a chat that we are not privy to.
Now, we're going to get into what happens next with that, but I'm just going to lay this on the line, and maybe it's sort of addressed in the next scene. But at the same time, he knows this woman. You think he would know how she would respond to being proposed to like that.
Yeah, you'd think, Joe. Back at home, Catherine tells Paul that she's not allowed to have a man in her room and tries to make him sleep on the couch. They argue, she rejects his proposal, and they break up.
Yep. But again, you're like, what? And again, they sort of mention that, oh, when's the last time we talked and all sorts of things, but it's still, it just doesn't make any sense to me. I'm in a relationship with this woman. You think I know her well enough to go, okay, I propose at this moment maybe isn't the best time to do it, but whatever. Anyway, he's going out of the movie as well.
Yep. In class, Catherine shows them how art is being commodified and made available to the masses with a Van Gogh paint-by-numbers set. Betty comes back from her honeymoon and butts heads with Catherine over having missed 6 weeks of classes, among other things.
Yes, apparently you were allowed to go on your honeymoon or get married or whatever, and you were expected to skip classes, and it wasn't supposed to be used against you, which makes sense, but it really should be something that's formally in the rules rather than just teachers decided to do it.
Mm-hmm. There's a secret society called Adam's Ribs. Barf. That nominates Catherine to be their special guest for the night. Things take a turn when she says she's not, in fact, engaged. She also has to dispel rumors that she's sleeping with Bill because that hasn't happened yet in the movie. Betty complains that Catherine is destroying the families of America by encouraging women like Joan to go to law school.
Mm-hmm. You know, that's wild. But also, so I guess this is their secret, what is it, the Dead Poet Society, right? Because Dead Poet Society is a secret society in that movie, and this Adam's Rib thing, we only see that once, and it's gone.
Yep.
I wonder how many secret societies were there back in the 50s. Was this a thing? Is it a thing now? Because I know I never knew of any secret society when I went to college.
Me neither, Joe.
You didn't go to college?
I did. Twice. One of them was even in person.
College. You didn't go to college. You didn't go away. You didn't go to a dorm-type college.
Catherine strikes back in class by doing a session on modern advertising media and how it portrays women. She gets called... I didn't check, but I presume all those ads were real. Yeah.
Wow.
Because it's not hard to find them.
Yeah, if you look back at those old ads, they are really misogynist as fuck. It makes your head spin what they thought was perfectly fine to put in the newspaper or a magazine.
It was perfectly fine.
And it was, it was mainstream.
She's called before the president for this, and Catherine is so infuriated by the school's stance that she storms into Bill's class to announce that she's quitting. He ends up talking her down. He gifts her a viewfinder thingy with slides from the Sistine Chapel and the Mona Lisa. Then they kiss. They spend a day together and then have sex. Afterwards, she makes a condition of their continued canoodling that he doesn't sleep with any more students. He agrees. Then he tells her a war story about his time in Italy that is straight out of War and Peace, I think. I think I read that in the trivia.
Okay. Yeah, we're going to get into what his problem is, but her going into the classroom like that would be a firing offense. Yep. That would make more sense. All the other complaints don't make any sense. But they're like, what are you doing? Airing your personal laundry, rushing into the classroom like that. That is unprofessional.
Yep. We see Connie and Charlie's relationship deepening. Then, at a synchronized swimming class, Betty tells her that Charlie is cheating on her. Or more like he's cheating on someone else with her.
And like an adult, rather than go ask him about this, she decides to just break up with him because that's a smart way to go.
She doesn't even just break up with him. She ghosts him. She does the 1953 ghosting.
Yes, indeedy. Like, oh, I think this is you're cheating on me, or yeah, I'm the side piece. Rather than finding out from you from your mouth, let me just believe this girl and not even give
this girl who is a vindictive bitch.
Yes, very much so.
Nancy disapproves of Catherine's relationship with Bill. Then we get a spring montage over a men's choir singing Istanbul, it's not Constantinople. At a dance, Connie finds out that Charlie and that other girl had broken up, but he got a new girlfriend when she basically ghosted him, when she thought he was his side piece. It's messy. She calls Betty out on being a manipulative jerkface.
Mm-hmm.
Catherine finds out from Tommy that Joan isn't going to Yale after all because she'll be living with him in Philly. Betty can't seem to find her husband and her mom won't let her stay with her. And now it's her job to just go home and wait for him. Lovely.
Indeed. Well, that was the thing. Men were men, so they're expected to have stray eyes and sleep at secretary and everything. And you as a wife, it's the thing. And I know this not so much from history books, from watching old movies. There's a strong implication that if a man is cheating, it's because the wife isn't giving him what he needs at home. It's not anything wrong with him. It's something wrong with her.
So
it's her fault.
Put a pin in that because we'll address it in a minute.
Yes, and that also comes in this movie. Okay.
Joan and Tommy elope. Giselle goes out to the theater and spots Spencer cheating on Betty. Connie runs to Charlie's dorm to get him back and does.
Mm-hmm. And everyone's aghast. Women aren't allowed in this dorm.
Yep. When Giselle gets back from a date with
By the way, did you give a goddamn about Connie or Charlie or any of these people?
No, I cared about nobody in this movie except maybe Amanda. When Giselle gets back from a date with a much older psychoanalyst, Betty tears into her. Giselle responds by hugging her. And then Betty breaks down, having been projecting her own marital woes and insecurities. And in that breakdown, she's like, he won't touch me. He doesn't want to sleep with me.
Yeah, that's right. She says that.
That's that pin that I put in our conversation.
Yeah, I understand. What I want to say here, though, is, listen, this woman has been a monster to all these people. She does not deserve a hug.
Why isn't she being murdered in her sleep?
I would not hug her. I mean, she's screaming at the top of her voice at this poor woman. Instead of getting a good slap across the face is what she's asking for. She's just like, oh, let me hug you, which is great. Giselle, I guess, is a better person than I would be.
She's a good communicator and she's good at de-escalating situations.
I guess so, because, man, there's nothing in that scene that says I deserve a hug right now.
Right. Catherine learns from a visiting old army buddy of Bill's that Bill was never in Italy. That's our second pin. He was in the army, but stationed on Long Island at the Language Institute the whole time.
Okay. And it's very interesting, this old army buddy, of course, is just there for that scene, then we never see him again. But everything I found about that, it made me think of this. The story, a friend of mine visited a friend of his in college, a friend of his from high school. And the friend neglected to tell him all the stuff that he was doing now that he was a college student. He had changed, he got a new nickname, he was wearing his clothes differently. Told him none of this. So when he goes to see his friend, he's finding out all this stuff. He's like, that's not who the person I was when I was in high school with him. So, folks, if you're going to change your whole persona when you go away, let your old friends know.
Yeah.
Give him a heads up. How can he not tell he's going around this campus, and everyone on that campus thinks he was a war hero. He says, I implied, and the people just went along with it. He straight up, we see in the classroom, he straight up says he was in the war fighting.
Mm-hmm. So
he's an outright liar. If you're going to do that, dude, let your army buddy know who visited you. He has access to your house. When Catherine comes in, she finds him in the shower. So clearly, you're close enough that he's allowed access to your place when you're not there.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe your girlfriend might stop by. You might want to tell her.
Yep.
Tell him, this is what she thinks.
When she
So Bill's an idiot is basically what I'm saying.
Yep. And he's a liar
and a moron.
And he's about to pay for it.
I guess pedo isn't the word for it, but whatever it is for, what is it for a guy sleeping with an underling, sleeping as a student?
Creep.
Good. Yeah, he's a creep as well.
When Catherine confronts Bill about the lie, he can't actually make it any better, and she breaks up with him.
I have to say, though, why would she even... he does not seem, the character doesn't seem like someone she would want to sleep with, especially since she knows he sleeps with students.
Yep.
You think that we might turn off for her? That's the way the character comes across to me.
Betty's mother tries to smooth things over on Spencer's behalf, but Betty isn't having it. The administrators decide to keep Catherine on, but only if she submits all of her lesson plans to them for approval. Her class all paint flowers for her to show her that they love her. After graduation, Betty defies her mother and asks Catherine's help in getting set up with an apartment in Greenwich Village as she is divorcing Spencer.
There is no world in which Betty does any of that. Nope. Betty becomes a head of the Young Republicans and becomes a real, even bigger monster than she already is.
Betty's final article is the one that she started at the start of the movie, saying that Catherine came to Wellesley to make a difference, but can't, with the school tying her hands behind her back. As Catherine is driven away from campus, all of her students, in their graduation gowns, chase after her on bicycles. The end.
The end. Another thing, when she gets that demand of like, okay, you can still stay here at the school, but we insisted you do this, this, and this. Well, apparently if she existed today, she would definitely do whatever they say, because that's how schools are these days. They just back down, especially if, happens to be the guy in the White House demanding things of them. They'll just knock their knees together and go like, what do you want, son?
Yep.
Anyway, George, does it still work?
This movie was so fucking boring. Holy shit, Joe. It was painfully boring. I'm going to say no. Not just because it was boring or because I didn't enjoy it, but it's too much of a fiction of something that didn't have to be a fiction. Like, Wellesley was a thing in 1953. The fact that it's nothing like nobody, like everybody that has seen this movie and had any experience with Wellesley, even people from that year were like, that's fucking bullshit. Fuck this movie. They all think it didn't work and they're the fucking experts. So I'm going to go with them.
Okay. Well, I'm just going to judge it as the film as opposed to those people. But I'll agree with you, it doesn't work. But I think it doesn't work because it's supposed to... This is billed as a feminist movie, and I didn't find it all that feminist. I didn't think what Catherine was doing was all that outside of the box. I didn't think there were any real stakes in any of this.
Nope.
Every single woman here was going to be fine. At least in Dead Poet Society, we're also upper-class twits. But at least one of the kids kills themselves. I mean, there are stakes there. Something horrible happens. There are no stakes. What, I'm not going to get married? Oh, I'm not going to find, a man? I mean, this is, for a feminist movie, I didn't find it all that feminist. I didn't find it all that progressive. I thought it played it extremely safe. And ultimately, yeah, it's a boring movie. And again, when we both agree on this, one of the minor characters is more interesting than absolutely everyone else in this picture. Mm-hmm. And that's bad for any film.
Agreed.
This was a Patron's Choice episode, and the poll for next month's film is already up on Patreon. The choices are Close Encounters of the Third Kind from 1977, Altered States from 1980, and Ex Machina from 2014.
What's the theme, Joe?
The theme is out of this world, George. Some things are just way out there. Way, way out. Way, way out. That's a Jerry Lewis movie that we will never, ever see for the show.
Okay.
Anyway, if you want to vote but are not a patron, you can fix that by becoming one at patreon.com/DTSWpod. Now, George, what's up next?
Next week, we will be unscriptedly talking about Lust Caution from 2007.
We'll explain in that episode why that happened.
Yep.
Anyway, so I guess that's it for this episode. I'm Joe Dixon. Thanks for listening.
And I'm George Romaka. Thanks for listening indeed, because if a podcast drops and there's nobody around to hear it, it's just another collection of ones and zeros that doesn't matter.
When your courses are set and a dreamboat you've met, have a real cigarette, have a Camel.
You've been listening to Does This Still Work? Produced by Joe Dixon and George Romaka.
This content is CAN credentialed, which means you can report instances of harassment, abuse, or other harm on their hotline at 617-249-4255 or on their website at creatoraccountabilitynetwork.org.
The hosts can be reached via social media, email, or the contact page at dtswpod.com. Be good to yourself and others because that still works.
Nope, that's the wrong clip.
That's how I feel sometimes.
I am a freshman in college and I have bad sleep and study habits. How can I get my longtime husband to think sexy? I have been in an agonizing and unhealthy relationship for 8 years, during which there have been countless separations and many broken hearts.